The Cyclist, by Erik Røde, 1755. Read by Richard D. Eisenhower. Continued.
Chapter 3. Ponty. Scene 12. Ponty shares a story. As the evening's enchantment continued, there came a moment when Ponty, with a gentle smile, looked at Carlo. In response, Carlo's eyes softened, giving Ponty a subtle nod of approval. It was evident that Ponty had something special to share, a story that held a cherished place in their hearts. "Carlo," Ponty said with reverence, "I have a wonderful story to share." Carlo's eyes lit up, anticipating the tale that was about to unfold. Ponty, her voice trembling with emotion, began. It was the eve of the turn of the century when our little town faced a crisis. Ponty began to weave her tale, setting the scene on the eve of the turn of the century. Ponty, described with a loving glint in her eye and her tone full of compassion, continued. Carlo, the baby, was born as the most adorable child the town had ever seen. However, joy quickly turned to concern when, just a few days after his birth, something troubling was discovered about his blood. The town's doctor was baffled, and desperate measures were needed. The doctor said with a voice of concern, "I've never seen anything like this." Ponty's voice carried the weight of history as she continued, revealing that Carlo's blood was a rare type in their region of Italy. Even in Rome, the capital, a suitable donor couldn't be found. Time was slipping through their fingers, and the entire town turned to fervent prayer, performing novenas to the Virgin Mary for the baby's well-being. Alex, unfamiliar with the term, nodded in understanding as Ponty explained the significance of novena prayers, a plea to God for divine intervention in dire situations. Ponty added, her voice filled with reverence, "Novenas were our lifeline, a plea to God for a miracle." Ponty, tears in her eyes, continued, "The whole town prayed day and night for a miracle." Ponty's narrative intensified as she described the pivotal moment when the doctor, in a last-ditch effort, decided to test the blood of all the townspeople. To their despair, no one in their town was a match for baby Carlo. It was a bleak situation. The doctor, his voice tinged with helplessness, admitted, "I've exhausted all possibilities." Scene 13. The grandfather. Then, as if sent by some miraculous providence, Carlo's grandfather, Angelo, appeared. He had been far away, exchanging farming knowledge with farmers from the south of Italy. No one had informed him of the dire situation because they didn't want to worry him. The entire situation had unfolded so rapidly that there was little understanding of the complexities of baby Carlo's condition. With tears welling up in her eyes, Ponty continued. Carlo's grandfather, Angelo, had arrived at the hospital in Rome, where baby Carlo had been transferred just hours earlier. Angelo, a towering figure at 6 feet 2 inches, with broad shoulders and a strong yet peaceful demeanor, had been the beacon of hope they desperately needed. Ponty described with awe, he arrived like a guardian angel. Angelo was immediately tested, and it was discovered that his blood matched baby Carlo's. The doctors initiated a series of blood transfusions, and Carlo began the slow but steady journey to recovery. Over time, his blood normalized, and the news of his improvement sent ripples of joy throughout their little town. Ponty, gratitude in her voice, whispered, Carlo's grandfather, Angelo, saved the family that day. Ponty explained the inexplicable bond that had formed between Carlo and his grandfather, Angelo, as he grew up. It was a bond that transcended words, a connection forged through the unbreakable ties of life and love. Carlo, a twinkle in his eye, recounted, "We had a pact, my grandfather and I he would live a full life, and I would be there every step of the way." In later years, the roles reversed. Angelo fell ill and required blood. In a touching act of reciprocity, Carlo became the donor for his beloved grandfather. As Ponty concluded her story, Carlo's eyes glistened with tears, but they were tears of nostalgia and happiness. Moved to the core by the depth of this family tale, Alex felt the significance of the moment. To change the mood and honor this profound story, Carlo raised his glass, his voice filled with emotion. "To my grandfather, Angelo, who always lives within me, saluti," he toasted. Alex, a proud smile on his face, raised his glass alongside Carlo's and said, "To the strength of family bonds." Ponti embraced Carlo with a joyful smile, and in that heartfelt moment, beneath the canopy of stars, they celebrated not only the past but also the enduring bonds of love and kinship that defined their lives. Scene 14. Ponti's family. In the soft glow of the evening, as the fragrant aromas of Carlo's cooking filled the air, Alex turned to Ponti with genuine curiosity. He asked her, "Were you also born in this region of Italy?" Ponti, a thoughtful and graceful woman, paused for a moment, her gaze briefly seeking Carlo's silent approval, a gesture that spoke volumes about their mutual trust and respect for one another. Carlo, with an inexplicable sense of confidence in the young American cyclist who had entered their lives just hours ago, offered a reassuring smile in response. Ponti quoted Carlo's grandfather, a man of wisdom and experience, had once said, "Carlo, I have an idea." Carlo, always respecting his grandfather Angelo's insights, replied with eagerness, and said, "Oh, let's hear it." It was a trust that typically took years to develop but had materialized swiftly in the presence of Alex. With Carlo's unspoken support, Ponti delved into the memories of her past. Ponti's story began with her cherished family, the foundation upon which her life was built. She was the youngest member of a close-knit clan, with 3 older brothers, each one a pillar of strength in their household. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and their childhood was filled with laughter, adventures, and the warmth of familial love. "My father," Ponti said with a voice filled with love, "he was the heart of our home. He cherished me, and I was his sunshine." Her mother, who had a quiet strength, was the embodiment of love and care, ensuring that their family thrived amidst the challenges of rural life. Ponti added with a hint of nostalgia, "My eldest brother would always say, our home was always filled with laughter and camaraderie. We were each other's greatest allies." Their family, like Carlo's, were farmers who toiled tirelessly to cultivate the land and provide for their loved ones. Their farm, nestled near the town, was a validation to their hard work and dedication. Carlo's grandfather once said in agreement, "The roots of a family run deep, and they are what keep us grounded." The first time Carlo caught a glimpse of Ponti, it was a casual encounter in their small town. His attention was elsewhere, his mind occupied with thoughts that had nothing to do with the young girl he had briefly seen. At that moment, there were no sparks, no immediate recognition of the connection that would bind them in the future. In a town where the love of literature and romance was a rare indulgence, Ponti was one of the exceptions. She had a deep passion for reading and an innate talent for writing. Her dreams extended beyond the confines of the countryside. She aspired to become a writer and bring back the richness of artistic culture to her family and their town. She was the one who saw beauty in every leaf, every sunset, Carlo remarked, a sense of admiration in his voice. Her father, a man who cherished Ponti, had promised her the opportunity to pursue higher education, with hopes that she would bring enlightenment back to their humble abode. Ponti's literary inclinations were evident. She possessed the ability to unravel the beauty hidden within metaphors and see the poetry in everyday life. "My father's words were a promise of a brighter future," Ponti added, her voice a mix of gratitude and determination. Despite her progressive views and ambitions, Ponti was deeply rooted in tradition, where her father's word held the weight of law. However, life can be as unpredictable as a sudden change in the wind, and Ponti closed her eyes momentarily, recalling the turbulent times that were about to follow. Scene 15. War. Carlo's grandfather, a man known for his wisdom and resilience, once shared a piece of sage advice with Carlo. "Carlo, remember, in the face of life's storms, it's the roots that keep the tree standing." Soon, Italy was plunged into the turmoil of the Great War. Her 2 younger brothers were conscripted, and the eldest voluntarily enlisted to protect his younger siblings. Tragically, none of them returned home, leaving Ponti's family with the heavy burden of loss. In the aftermath of the war, Ponti's family faced daunting challenges. Her father, resilient and capable, managed the farm with assistance from laborers, but Ponti's future seemed destined to revolve around caring for her aging parents. Years passed, and most of her friends married and started families of their own. Ponti, once the center of attention in her town, found herself facing a different fate. It was a time of both sorrow and strength, Carlo recalled, his eyes reflecting the resilience that had carried their families through those difficult years. Carlo's grandfather, a wellspring of wisdom and compassion, would often say, "Life's journey is like a winding river. You may not know where it leads, but you must navigate its waters with courage." Then, one day, as fate would have it, she encountered Carlo in the town square. For the first time, he gazed deeply into her eyes, and in that moment, something magical happened. Overwhelmed with joy, Ponti felt her heart flutter with happiness. Yet, the circumstances of her family made marriage an unlikely prospect. However, fate, as it often does, had other plans. The next time their paths crossed, something extraordinary happened. Carlo looked into Ponti's eyes, and in that singular moment, time seemed to stand still. It was as if the universe conspired to bring them together, and the sparks of destiny ignited. From that day forward, their lives became intertwined, and the love story of Carlo and Ponti began to unfold, a tale that would endure the test of time. It was Carlo, with his grandfather's wisdom and a heart full of love, who devised a plan to bridge the gap. He offered to work double shifts, tending to both his own farm and Ponti's, and proposed that his father meet with Ponti's father to formalize the arrangement. Carlo's grandfather, a man who had witnessed the ebb and flow of generations, once imparted this wisdom to Carlo. In matters of the heart, sometimes the most precious bonds are forged not by fate alone but by the determination of those who refuse to let go. The meeting between the two fathers was a solemn affair, and their word was their bond. Ponti's father, a man of few words but unwavering integrity, summarized their agreement: "Our families will unite, and our children shall be bound by love." The agreement they reached that day filled Ponti's heart with uncontainable joy. To become Carlo's wife became the dream she had cherished for so long. Their wedding day was a celebration that brought love and happiness back to their town, healing the scars that the war had inflicted. Carlo, true to his word, worked tirelessly for years to honor the pledge he had made. Carlo's grandfather, the guardian of traditions and family values, once said, "In the tapestry of life, it is the threads of love and commitment that create the most enduring patterns." As Ponti recounted this beautiful and nostalgic chapter of her life, a tear glistened in her eye, reflecting the enduring happiness she had found in her love story with Carlo.
The Cyclist, by Erik Røde, 1755. Read by Richard D. Eisenhower.